Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, and as we wait for our guest, Larry Johnson, to join us on the platform, we'll talk about a few things. It's just so much going on right now. I want to go to an article, okay, to show you the missteps of the Israeli government, the missteps of the U.S., the missteps of NATO, and how every time they believe that they're doing something to cement their regional or global ambitions and their power, we find out there's so much more to it, and the blowback and boomerang effect is absolutely unconscionable. Okay, there's an article. I was reading the title in the show yesterday, but there's an article today um, on Press TV, and the article is titled "Yemen's Naval Blockade Forces Closure of Israel's Only Red Sea Port." And in this article, it reads like this. Israel says its only Red Sea port in Eilat will shut down next week as a deepening debt crisis triggered by a month-long naval blockade by Yemen's Ansarullah movement brings the strategic facility to a standstill. Listen closely to this, okay? The regime's port and Shipping Authority said in a statement Wednesday that the port will permanently close on July 20th. Authorities acknowledged that the crippling blockade by Yemeni forces have effectively paralyzed operations in Eilat. I think it's Eilat, but it might be Eilat. Once a key hub for maritime trade. Quote, due to the shutdown of the port of Eilat and its deteriorating financial situation amid the ongoing crisis, the Eilat municipality has notified port management of the seizure of all bank accounts over unpaid debts. This comes directly from Israel's National Emergency Authority and from his memo. And it says, as a result, the Shipping and Ports Authority announced that the port will cease all operations starting this Sunday. So we understand that all across the globe, there's a global debt crisis. And the reason I brought that up is because the U.S., NATO, the so-called quote-unquote EU, the political wing or the political arm of NATO, and Israel have all miscalculated, trying to cement their power or their influence or their dominance. They have all miscalculated in all of their strategic policies. And let me tell you what I mean by that. The United States miscalculated with Georgia, right? She miscalculated in Ukraine. And because they wanted Syria so bad, the U.S., NATO, and Israel miscalculated. How do I say that? Because it takes money to fund wars. It takes money for revolution. It takes money to pay so-called jihadists. It takes money to train, to arm, to give political cover, and to continue to funnel payments to them and arms to them to overthrow Syria, to strike on a daily basis in Lebanon. To do all of that, it takes funds for that. You just don't get people off the street to do that for nothing. And so now we're looking at the blowback effect of the policies. Look at Israel. This also has a direct correlation to Iran's strategic strikes on Israeli infrastructure, Israeli military infrastructure, Israeli oil terminals and ports and gas terminals and ports. So now with the closure of this port, that means there's nothing coming in and nothing will be able to go out. This effectively destroys more parts of the economy because trade is the basis of economic growth. Trade is also the basis of economic sovereignty, economic independence, and economic prosperity. You shut trade down, you limit budgets, you limit government financing of certain things, which means jobs lost, which means bankruptcies, as the article said, which means auctioning off goods to try to find revenue, to try to fill the holes, to fill the gaps. So we're looking at a slow burn that is steadily speeding up. Israel is feeling the effects of the disaster war, the 12-day war that they launched against Iran, that they launched against Hezbollah. Remember that there's a knock-on effect of this, because we look at what happened and we see the hand behind the situation, which is the United States and NATO. Look at their economic situation. It is even worse. All right? It's even worse. We understand what's going on. Shout out to Ping One in the building. Shout out to Ping One. So, the blowback, the knock-on effects of the war in Lebanon, the war in Syria, the war in Afghanistan, the war in Yemen, the war in Somalia, the influx or covert war in the Sahel region. There's a knock-on effect of that. And the knock-on effect is the flooding of immigrants to areas that don't want them, but because they've destroyed any viable institutions in the nations that they had their eye on, the nations are no longer able to be governed properly because of the assassinations, the color revolutions, the influx of terror. So now you have a major knock-on effect on these economies, and they're screaming, we cannot take, look at the EU, we cannot take any more immigrants, we cannot do anything. They don't act like adults. They don't look at the ramifications of the actions. They are the, and I heard a guy say this, and I said, you know what? My statements are getting around. This is the microwave age, where they want it hot, fast, and right now without looking at. That's Larry Johnson. Okay, Larry, hold on 1 second. Hold on, I'll send it to you in just a second. Hold on 1 second, Larry. All right, let me see. Hold on 1 second, Larry. Okay. I'm about to send it to you again, Larry. StreamYard is tripping with this. Hold on 1 second. Give it to me. Here we are. Larry, I'm sending it to the email right now. All right. Boom. I just sent it. You'll get it in a second. Thank you, Larry, for telling me that the link didn't work. But the knock-on effect, these people are not adults in the building. They're not adults. So they don't look at the policies that are driving the influx of terror. They don't look at the policies that is breaking down the economy. All they look at is the after effect, and they don't tell the people exactly what's taking place. And they keep the masses of the people ignorant to the core problems which are plaguing the nations and their government. I see Larry in the building. I'm going to bring Larry in. M. Sparks in the building. Salute. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. I got to bring my guy Larry on. Larry, how is it going today?
Yeah, I'm getting double. I got to shut you off on the other. Getting double feedback. Yeah, the original link didn't work. It's crazy.
That is absolutely crazy. I wanted to ask you something since you we're just getting you on the platform. First let me say it in a statement. It seems like the knock-on effect of the ballistic strikes from Yemen and from the so-called 12-day war with Iran, it seems like it is having that knock-on effect because Israel announced the closure of the Eilat port. And it says from Sunday on, it will be closed.
Yeah. Well, it hasn't really been open for, good Lord, 15 months, 16 months since the Houthis started shutting down traffic in the Red Sea. The shipping, the ships going in and out of there had dropped off dramatically. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they may have just really, it was too expensive just to keep it open for nothing.
Mm-hmm. So Larry, what do you think the U.S. will do? Because to keep Israel afloat, the United States injects money into the Israeli economy and the United States right now is suffering and hemorrhaging in this economy. So what would the United States do? Will they go for a second war? We see Israel bombing Lebanon, bombing Syria, taking more land in Syria, and trying to strike in Yemen. General Salente says, when all else fails, they take us to war.
Yeah, let's separate that out. Israel's, I think, is overstretching itself dramatically, and by trying to conduct multiple front military operations, is going to stressing its system to a breaking point. We've seen that the rate of suicide among Israeli soldiers has been going up. Those who have served in Gaza, they're apparently killing civilians like they have been has been a shock to the system. Israel's economy definitely is suffering. I heard somebody the other day say, "Oh man, our stock market is going through the roof," and it's like, tourists aren't coming, and you've had significant damage to a lot of your economic infrastructure as a result of the missile strikes by Iran. So I don't get that. U.S. economy is actually not doing too bad right now. I was just, literally on the phone before coming to you, with I'll call him my financial advisor, but he's got a really good track record, and I put my wife put her pension fund with him, and it's up 20% in just 1 month. So he seems to know what he's doing. But he is very confident that the U.S. economy is actually the CEOs are hiring, the economy is moving. So the United States is still in a position where we can financially support Israel and keep them in the game financially. But the real problem is on the political front, because we had banked on this, al-Jalani, al-Shara, who's now the head of Syria, being our guy now, even though he was a former ISIS terrorist. That we cleaned him up, put a nice suit on him, cut his hair, trimmed his beard, made him respectable. But it's like I said, if you can cut the hair on your dog, you can put a nice collar on it, but if it's hungry, it's still going to eat chickens. Okay, and that so we see them launching this attack against the Druze. Now the Druze, have fought back, and what people don't understand, the Druze and the Israelis have actually a very close relationship. There have been a number of Druze that have served in the Israeli military. The population sort of, they're on both sides of the border there in Syria and the Golan Heights. So this is this is a way that the war can expand, and it remains to be seen if Syria is just going to back off and say, okay, we give up. This Islamic faction is going to back off, or if they're going to, mobilize and go after the Druze and fight Israel. We'll see.
Will that be a linchpin for a regional war?
Yeah, I would argue the regional war is already underway. In Syria is the main battleground. Now, they have, the Kurds. Well, for a while, it looked like the war between the Kurds and the Turks had eased off, but now the Kurds are fighting with another ethnic group up in that region. So Syria is just going to be a mess of instability for the foreseeable future.
And did you think that the politicians foresaw that? Do they want order out of chaos? Because it seems like their designs is to create chaos across that region and destabilize that region.
Well, I don't think anybody's acting with a strategic plan. I think they're acting to immediate concerns and then hoping that whatever they do works out. And so, and hope is not a plan. So, so you've got competing interests. Um, the U.S., Israel, and Great Britain, they want to isolate and destroy Iran. Um, Turkey sort of, would like to see Iran overthrown, but Turkey's more concerned about spreading its influence, trying to control Syria, wanting to use its relationship with Azerbaijan to create an east-west trade corridor. So there's just a lot of confusion right now with who's in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you've got the Alawites and the Shia population in Syria that are now strongly united with Iran, and Iran is, I think, likely to take steps to do what it can to try to help protect those people. So it's just, Syria is. Um, if you got money to invest, I wouldn't invest it there. Let's put it that way.
Well, you brought up something. What is the situation with the Azerbaijanis and the Iranians? Because there were talks that Israel used the airspace for drones and everything, and drop tanks were found on the beaches in the Caspian Sea. If a war breaks out again, do you think Iran will take it to Azerbaijan if they allow this to happen again?
Yeah, I think um, Iran's not going to launch any preemptive strikes on Azerbaijan, but if there's another set of attacks, I could see Iran taking out, lobbing some missiles into Azerbaijan's oil fields up around Baku, and really and destroying its ability to move oil. That would kill Azerbaijan. It's only a country of 10 million, 11 million people, so it's not a big country at all. Iraq is 9 times the size, and I mean Iran is 9 times the size. Um, and we've already seen, Russia as well has been cracking down on Azerbaijan because Azerbaijan has been used by the CIA and by Mossad for intelligence operations both inside Iran and inside Russia. Um, 2 weeks ago now, uh, Russia launched airstrikes on two oil refineries in Ukraine. Both of them were owned by the president of Azerbaijan, Aliyev. And Russia had left them alone, had not touched those oil refineries previously. But this all came after Azerbaijan got outraged that Russia started to crack down on these Azeri criminal gangs in Russia. And so then it picked up and arrested and incarcerated some media personnel from RT, from TASS, Sputnik, as well as other. There were some Russians who had actually fled to Azerbaijan when Putin ordered the mobilization back in September of 2022. And the Azeris picked those guys up and beat the hell out of some of them. Maybe they thought we would have been better off back in Russia. So um, it is. Azerbaijan is out over its skis, and I think Russia's in the process of correcting that, bringing them back into line, so that Iran's not necessarily going to have to do anything on its own.
Why do you think Russia allowed the West to get a foothold in Azerbaijan, a strong foothold like that in Azerbaijan and Armenia? Because now, because these are former Soviet states, and the
Right.
U.S. now has and Israel has a strong foothold up in there, and Russia seems to play reactionary instead of going the offensive with a lot of stuff.
Well, I think they take seriously the concept of not trying to interfere too much in the affairs of other countries. So you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone kind of mentality. But once the problem starts developing, then they'll say, okay, we got to go address this, which is what's happened.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the United States is trying to put pressure on Russia through Azerbaijan and through Armenia? Because if we look at the arc there, all of these former states, the NATO continues to press them
Yeah.
to stretch Russia's economic resources out and to stretch their military out. Do you think Russia has picked up on that?
Oh yeah, 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 and that's what's underway. I mean, this is an attack at the underbelly of Russia through the Caucasus. So
Mm-hmm.
from Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan.
Mm-hmm. Um, will that lead to Russia a military intervention if it continues on? Because when Russia stepped back and allowed it in Georgia, Russia had to go into Georgia militarily. When they stepped back and allowed it in Ukraine, look what we have in Ukraine. So now we see that the president of Armenia is now talking about he may pull Armenia out of the CSO, I mean SCO, and Azerbaijan is elbow to elbow with Turkey, with Israel, and with the United States. So, do you think that Russia would militarily intervene?
No, I don't see him. Again, when Russia sent troops into Georgia in 2008, it was in response to attacks on Russian soldiers. I think they've got a lot more tools to use with Azerbaijan. Again, Azerbaijan's not big, and Azerbaijan's dependent on oil, and Russia can easily disrupt that oil flow. So, Russia's going to, I don't see them moving quickly to try to, the arrest and breakup of the Azeri criminal organizations in Russia is the first step. And that's going to create some pain back in Azerbaijan. And then on top of it, they can start deporting a bunch of Azeris that are in Russia. Put them back in Azerbaijan, and all of a sudden, Aliyev's got a problem. He's got 200,000 more people he's got to worry about. 200,000, that's a significant number of when you got a population of only 10 million. You don't easily absorb that many people all at once.
Mm-hmm.
So Russia's got other options before having to do anything militarily, but I would be sure that the general staff is planning for that contingency.
Mm-hmm. What is the situation like in Ukraine now? Because we see it seems like every day Russia has advanced, and it seems like the front lines are crumbling. And we hear Macron, and we hear Starmer, and we hear Van der Leyen double down on their support politically and publicly. But we see Russia continues to grind down NATO and Ukraine. What is it looking like there?
Well, depends on your perspective. If you're Russian, things are looking good. If you're Ukrainian, not so good. Yeah, no, the war of attrition's accelerating, and Russia's hitting the Ukrainians all along the front from north to south, which stretches out what are limited and limited military resources on the part of Ukraine. They don't have vast reserves. So there are, and they don't have unlimited supplies of ammunition. They're running. They're like 90% of their tanks and armored personnel carriers have been destroyed, whereas Russia's continues to build tanks and armored personnel carriers. So this they're dead. They just don't know it yet. Let's put it that way. And I think we're going to, by the end of August, we're going to be in a dramatically different position. That significant territory that remains in Donetsk will have been taken. And Russia will be into Dnipropetrovsk, and we'll be making further moves in Sumy and up north in Kharkiv up north.
One Ukrainian MP says when they were being interviewed in the Western press, it said, um, "Weapons. We don't need new weapons. What we need is manpower. The shortage of manpower, and said a whole generation has been lost
Yeah,
in the war.
yeah.
So how, with that demographic, how can Ukraine, even if it's playing patsy to the United States, how can they continue on without an uprising of the people? Because you have a huge diaspora of Ukrainians that left, and now you see the population in decline. And every time they arm some more people, they're killed. I mean, this is unsustainable. Not in the far future, but this is unsustainable in the near future.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's Ukraine's going the way of the Paraguay and the Triple Alliance War back in. I was corrected. I used to thought I called it the Chaco War, but Chaco took place later. And in that war, 75% of the men in Paraguay were killed. And so going forward, you know, one guy, single guys sure had a large choice of women. There was little competition. And that's what's frankly happening in Ukraine now. Ukraine has suffered a dramatic loss, probably well over a million, million five in terms of men. They just did another body exchange today. The Russians received 9 dead Russian soldiers, I believe it was. I think that was the number. And the Ukrainians received 1,000 dead Ukrainians.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's been that kind of it's been that kind of disparity. Here it is. Sorry, it was 19 Russian soldiers for 1,000 Ukrainian soldiers.
Woo.
Yeah, so the huge numbers.
Is Zelensky worried about it? Forget being worried about what Russia is doing. Is he worried about the population rising up? Because he can't hide these numbers forever. I mean, they skew the numbers, but these numbers are they can't hide them.
Well, if he's not said anything in public to reveal that kind of concern. You have seen videos here and there of people starting to fight back against the military recruiters that go out and grab people off the street. But again, that hasn't become widespread either. So, it seems that the Ukrainians are still the will to continue fighting. Hasn't been broken.
So now let's talk the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Mr. Donald Trump, and how he's going off against people who are questioning him on Epstein. What is going on with him?
He's trying. I didn't realize that his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, she was hired as a political consultant for Benjamin Netanyahu's political campaign. So essentially, you've got Jewish control, Zionist control of the Trump administration, hands down. And Trump got his marching orders from Bibi. And I don't know if they were threatening to, if they had any other leverage over Trump, but Trump is trying to prevent. It's going to be the Streisand effect. The Streisand effect is years ago, Barbara Streisand. Someone got a picture of her home on the cliffs above Malibu, looking out on the Pacific Ocean, and she went on a campaign to try to get that picture suppressed. Well, the harder she worked to suppress it, the more people wanted to see it, the more attention it drew. So that's exactly what Trump has done, trying to shut down this Jeffrey Epstein. He has suddenly made Jeffrey Epstein more relevant than he's been for, was it 5 years? 6 years now, when he died in 2019. What's amazing is the propaganda as well that's surrounding this. Excuse me. There's a great video. Sorry. There's a great video of Bill O'Reilly. He's being interviewed on one of these television shows, and he starts out saying, blaming Epstein's arrest on Obama and that it happened under Obama, and the news anchor says, "Oh, whoa, wait a second," and if he had to correct Bill O'Reilly, he said, "No, that was Trump. Trump is the one who had him arrested." And O'Reilly's face is like, what? So there's so much. Um, this really is an ugly scandal because you saw um, that Bill Barr, who was under federal prosecution when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in 2019. Well, Bill Barr's father was the headmaster at the Dalton School, a select school in New York, private. Got to be wealthy to go there. And he used to. Barr's father prided himself on only hiring Ivy League, graduates who came out of Ivy League universities. Yet he hired Jeffrey Epstein, who was a college dropout, who didn't have a college degree. And then Bill Barr's father later went on to write a book about powerful men having sex with children. So right there, a guy that even thinks about that tells you there's something wrong. So here's Bill Barr who arrests him, and then it's on Bill Barr's watch that he dies. The one of the prosecutors in that case was Maureen Comey, Jim Comey's daughter. Why is that relevant? Well, there's flight logs showing that James Comey was on Jeffrey Epstein's plane flying he'd been out at the island, flew from the island into Norway on one trip. So, you got all these connections to Epstein. They're trying to cover something up. Trump, I don't know if Trump was blackmailed or if Trump was warned that if he did this, it would damage the intelligence community. And you can't rule out the possibility that they're trying to shut down all attention on this because Epstein may actually still be alive, that they staged his death in order to have him escape and get back into the protection of the Mossad. But, Trump's attack on his base to tell people that are his supporters where he had talked about doing this. He had talked about investigating this. His son had made promises. Kash Patel had made promises. Dan Bongino had made promises. And now he's calling them stupid and, calling it bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and I don't want your support. Oh yeah, you're so popular right now, Mr. President, at like 45%. You don't need more support. What an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Trump's proved to be just a complete clown. I'm done with him, personally.
Do you think more people are moving towards that position? Because when you lash out at your base and literally curse them out publicly for the whole world to see and say, I don't need you, and anybody that does X, Y, and Z is full of BS and they're buying in the Kool-Aid. Do you think his advisors are telling him that this is not a great strategic move?
Well, I hope they are, but you don't have to be. Even Helen Keller can see what's going on now, because when you've got Candace Owens, I think she's going to like run a program on Epstein now every day. And I watched her yesterday. That girl's digging in. She is. She's not taking any of it. She is. We're going to lay it out chapter and verse. Tucker Carlson, he's doing another program tonight on Epstein with Daryl Cooper. The number of people like Ryan Dawson who've got a lot of expertise on it these people are in great demand now, and they're showing up. So instead of Trump, quieting this down and taking the focus off, is heating it up. Now let's say that his real purpose. Let's say that what he's really trying to do is blow the lid off of this, and so he's doing sort of reverse psychology. He's going to blow the lid off of it by attacking those who believe it and making such outlandish statements so that it will bring all this attention. And once you've got all that attention, then you can turn around and say, oh, I was wrong. There was, who knows? But it doesn't appear to be. It's just sort of a crazy counterproductive tactic if that's what he's doing. I don't think so. I think he genuinely is trying to shut it down because of the damage it would do to Israel. This is all about protecting Israel.
Do you think, Larry, and I won't hold you too much longer, but Larry, do you think that as this story builds and as this situation approach crisis level, do you think to take people's minds off of it, especially if it is damaging his presidency, which it is, and threatens his position, do you think that he would take us to war?
Uh, I doubt it. He might do an attack, but um, again, we're not in a position to sustain combat operations anywhere. We go back and call us the Minutemen. We can last a minute. That's it. I mean, look what happened with the Houthis in the Red Sea. So we don't have the industrial base to sustain a modern industrial war like Russia does, and then like China is capable of doing.
So what does that put the United States saying that it wants to wage war against Russia, wants to wage war against Iran, is trying to destabilize the Middle East and North Africa. It is provoking North Korea, and it is trying to pivot towards China. I mean, Trump has leveled. I was looking at something just a second ago. Trump has leveled sanctions on practically everybody. It says Trump warned 150 nations of new sanctions. That's
Yeah,
practically the entire world. This guy is like, has he lost his marbles?
yeah, yeah, yeah. He has, I think. I think he's in early stages of dementia or some sort of, um, you know, disease that comes with getting old and your brain not working properly. Uh, and he's being manipulated in some ways. So not as bad as Joe Biden, but it's going in that direction.
Yeah. And before I let you go, this is what the article says. It says Trump to warn more than 150 nations of new tariffs. The U.S. president has said he plans to send letters informing countries that their tariff rate could be set at 10% or 15%. That's 150 nations. And in essence, you're waging economic warfare on the entire world.
Yeah. Uh, it was what was that Dale Carnegie course? How to win friends and influence your enemies. Trump's Trump's writing a book just the opposite. How to piss off your friends and empower your enemies. It's crazy. But he's the best. He knows everything. I know everything. I'm on top of it. I'm nobody better than me. There's never been another president like this. I am the best ever. Okay, you insecure twit. Stop it. Like I said, I am completely tired of his act. It is he is he's doing damage to the country.
Closing a question to you, Larry. Since most people believe that Mossad has something on him, and we know that Bibi Netanyahu wants war with Iran, he wants to rid his himself of his nemesis. Do we go back to war soon?
No, I don't think so. They're gonna. I mean, they're gonna try to do it, but we'll have. It won't just come out. It won't be a bolt out of the blue. We'll see it coming. The rhetoric will start. They'll start creating the They got to first develop the rationale why we need to go attack him again. But meanwhile, Iran's not sitting back waiting. They're building up, preparing themselves to defend against the next attack. They do expect to be attacked again. So,
Man, Larry, once again, thank you so much for joining me.
yeah,
Thank you for
I
the
was sitting.
answer. Thank you for the intimate conversations for my audience too, man. You awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I kept trying the for whatever reason the other link wasn't working, So I'm going, God, what? And I said, oh, wait, he's going live. So I'll go into the chat.
I really appreciate it, Larry, man. I'll send you the video, man. Be blessed, be safe, and I'll contact you later.
All right, my friend. Later. Bye-bye.
All right. Everybody listen. Sunday morning at 8 a.m. we'll have Brian Berletic on the platform. This weekend we'll have, or sometime this week we'll have a channel member Patreon video stream or whatever going on. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, on God's green earth. I'm checking the comments before I go. Hold on one second, everybody. And let me put them up there real quick. All right. All right, Semper Fi. Ha, he must be a Marine. I just want to say this in closing. All right, before we go off there. What is going on is the breakdown of the Western world, and they're trying their best to keep the system going. As I say, and I hear another person saying, which is Brian Berletic, that you can't look at all of these situations independently. As I always say, you have to connect the dots because all of them are dots in a picture. You know how if you get a coloring book and it has dots on it, if you look at one dot, you may not be able to understand what the picture is, but if you connect dot to dot to dot, you'll see a bigger picture. That's what we're trying to do, is give you the bigger picture of what's going on. So hopefully you will get something out of coming to this platform. Hit the like button and subscribe. As I always say, closing out, do right by others, not because there's some material gain or because some accolades are to be had. Do right because it's the right, the humane, and the godly thing to do. Because even when no one else is watching you, God Almighty is watching you. Right? He sits high, but he looks low, as my mother always says. Know that I love each and every one of you who loves truth, but know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, remember to stay righteous. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. We're out of here. Peace.
Told you to walk away. That was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a